Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum and welcome back in lecture number 9. And our today's topic is time value of money in Islamic finance, which is very important topic in conventional financial system as well. And it creates a lot of confusions about the time value of money in Islamic economic system or in Islamic financial system. So before we go into the details of this lecture, let's have a recap about our previous lecture. In our previous lecture, we studied the concept of factors of production under conventional economic system and factors of production under Islamic economic system. So we discussed it in a lot of details. Like in conventional system, we have 4 factors of production: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. So entrepreneur is one of the factors that manages all other factors, and we differentiate between the labor and the entrepreneur. Whereas in Islamic economic system, factors of production, they are taken as hired factors of production and entrepreneurial factors of production, and there is a division into factor inputs and consumed inputs. So consumed inputs are those inputs which are consumed during the process of production, whereas those inputs which can be rented are used on a wage like capital equipments, the physical capital, and the labor and the entrepreneurs. These are the factor inputs which can be used as entrepreneurial factors of production as well. So all those factors which earn rent and ujrat, they can become factor inputs, and also all those factors, those can face risk in a business, they can be known as entrepreneurial factors of production. And also we discussed the equilibrium in factors of production, that there is a demand and supply of factors of production in the economy. So the market forces or the economic condition would determine that how much will be the supply of hired factors of production and how much will be the supply of entrepreneurial factors of production. So there is a balance between the hired factors of production and entrepreneurial factors of production. So an increased demand in hired factors of production would mean a reduced supply towards the entrepreneurial factors of production, and vice versa. So that was about our previous lecture, and in today's lecture, after the learning outcomes would be that you will be able to understand the concept of time value of money in conventional financial system, what we are used to see around us in our chapters. Maybe in your BBA or MBA courses you have studied the time value concept, and it is based on the interest rates. And then you will be able to understand the concept of time value of money in Islamic financial system. So gradually we are moving from the theoretical basis of our course towards the practical aspects of the course. And time value of money will lead us towards different products of Islamic banks as well. And then to compare the features of conventional and Islamic concept of time value of money and how the systems they deal money in the economy. And the concepts, they are discussed in a lot of details. So let's see. First we have time value of money in conventional financial system. The TVM would stand for time value of money, is a basic concept in the contemporary monetary system. So in today's economy, time value of money is the basic concept, without which the banking system would collapse. All the banking system, the financial system, is based on the time value of money concept. And it originates from the concept of interest, which is prohibited in Islam. So the main point of conflict starts right away when we say interest is forbidden. So there is no concept of the present banking practices we see, and or the financial markets, they have the practices on ground, so there is no room for that. And then it impacts consumer finance, business finance, and government finance. So in all finance areas, whether it may be consumer finance, business finance, or the government finances, wherever interest factor or the time value of money concept of our conventional economic system is involved, there is a conflict between Islamic and conventional here, so that will not be allowed under Islamic economic system. What is time value of money actually? So it says, in fact, while we are living in a conventional economic setup, so we would prefer to have, for example, 10,000 rupees today than to have them after 5 years, because after 5 years worth of 10,000 rupees today will be reduced. So maybe we may not be able to purchase anything or the thing we want to purchase now, and we may not be able to purchase the same thing after 5 years. For example, if you want to purchase a bicycle today for 10,000 rupees, would you be able to purchase the same bicycle 5 years from now? Maybe not, because there are so many factors. The currencies, they are depreciating, the inflations are there, so there are certain risk premiums which are added towards the price, and the time value of money concept would add price into it. So we will not be able to purchase the same bicycle that we can purchase today with the same amount of currency after 5 years. And the conventional financial theory suggests that an efficient funds management requires a better fund allocation and arrangement. So under the conventional economic system, whatever funds you have at your disposal, for example your savings, you have to find a better allocation and very smart arrangements to allocate your funds where you can earn some reward for it, such that all the factors like inflation and other economic indicators, they are compensated in the future value of your capital or your savings. For example, there is always an opportunity to earn an interest rate on deposits instead of exposing them to other investment opportunities. So when there are threats in the economy, that when the risks are higher in the economy, so you can deposit your amounts in the safe deposits in the banks, or you can invest in somewhere in the treasury deposits, and you can earn some interest rates. So that is the safest way to earn a minimum amount of return. So if you want to earn more return, you have to face more risk. So it is up to you that where you want to invest your funds, how much risk you are going to take, and how much return you want. And under the conventional economic system, we have two types of interest, that is known as simple interest and compound interest, because both of them, they determine the time value of money in our conventional setup. So the concepts of simple and compound interest, let's have a look at that as well. So simple interest is an amount you pay on your principal amount. So if you lend your money or you borrow the money, so at the increment, the percentage you have to pay after certain time intervals, that is the simple interest. So if it is paid only on the principal amount, then it is simple interest. And it becomes compound interest when the amount of interest which will be added into the principal amount, then the next period would earn an interest rate not only on the principal amount but also on the interest earned in the previous year. So that will be the compound interest. So the formula for simple interest is that principal amount you deposit or you borrow, and then the interest rate on it, and the number of intervals or the time periods involved into it. So for example, assume that you deposited 1,100 rupees in an account earning 8% in simple interest for 2 years. What is the accumulated interest at the end of the second year? So the principal amount is 100 year, and 8% is the interest rate, and for a time interval of 2 years. So it will be 16 rupees, and the total would become 116 rupees. And this will be the total in this case. And the future value is the value at some future time of present amount of money, or a series of payments calculated at a given interest rate. So the future value would be that for the given time interval with the given interest rate, you determine the interest on the principal and add it in the principal amount. That will be the future value of the present sum of amount. And as I said earlier, compound interest is the interest which is earned not only on the principal amount but also on the interest which has been earned in the previous time periods. And most of the deposits in the financial institutions, they earn compound interest. In our conventional setup, there are no such arrangements where the deposits earn simple interest. In almost all the banks and financial institutions, all the deposits, they earn or any lending that they earn compound interest. And the deposits, they grow exponentially in compound interest in comparison with the simple interest. So the future value of a deposit, we can draw some graphs as well. We can have this arrangement like we have the present value here, that is 1000 rupees, and at an interest rate, the future value after 1 year and the future value after 2 years, we can determine it for any number of years. And it can be determined for the simple interest, and it can be determined for the compound interest. And the formula for compound interest would be a little different. For example, for the first year, the future value would be the principal amount which is borrowed or deposited, and the interest it earns in the first year. So this is the interest earned in the first year. So the total amount would be after 1 year is equal to 1070. So actually this is like that, principal amount plus principal amount into interest. So this formula has been simplified like that. The amount deposited at the time t equal to 0, and then 1 plus I for 1 period. So if it goes for the second period, future value for the second year, it will be like that. So after 1 year under the compound setup, the future value would be 1070 rupees at an interest rate of 7% for 1 year. And then, as I mentioned earlier, for the second year, now the interest will be earned on the interest of the previous year and the principal amount as well. So we can simplify the formula as I explained earlier like that, and we can calculate the future value after 2 years with an interest rate of 7% for a principal amount of 1000 rupees. And this is the formula. And this graph shows that how exponentially the compound interest grows in comparison with the simple interest. So in this case, if you see rupees 100,000, 1 lakh rupees, if they are deposited for 25 years, so how do they grow at a rate of 10% per year on a simple and compound interest? So in a simple interest rate, they grow like this in a linear style, whereas they grow exponentially. As you can see in this graph, they grow exponentially, and after 25 years, a balance of 1 lakh rupees grows to 10.83 lakhs, whereas the same balance grows on to 3.5 lakhs in the simple interest. Now we come to the main topic of our today's discussion, that is the time value of money in Islamic finance. So these are the points we are going to discuss in the forthcoming lecture under the Islamic financial system. So first of all, money and Islamic viewpoint. So we can understand the Islamic viewpoint if we know the conventional point of view about the money. So under the conventional system, the concept and nature of money is that money is a commodity and is used to obtain other goods. So the difference is here, in Islam, money is taken as a medium of exchange or store of value, but in case of conventional economic system, money is a commodity and is used to obtain other goods. So just like wheat, rice and any other commodity, money is also taken as commodity and widely marketable, as it is high in demand and valued good. Thus, it is sure that it can be used anytime and anywhere. So because we are used to the system where money is everything, so it is highly in demand. Particularly, there are certain currencies which are very high in demand, for example, dollars, because almost 60 and 70% of the world trade is done in dollars. So everybody needs dollars. So if you want to purchase anything from across the globe, if you have dollars, you can make a purchase, because most of the countries, they deal in dollars. And then it can be transported easily. Money is made to make human life easier, therefore to make sure that its convenience is important. So under the conventional economic system, the concept is that it is easily transferable. You can transfer from one deposit to another deposit. You can purchase by paying an amount of money, the cash, instead of the barter system or any other commodity to purchase another commodity. So the relatively scarce, as it is high in demand and high in value, which means it holds a high value in small quantities. Since the monies, the currencies, they have been printed, they were printed against certain assets, but now they are being printed without any backup of assets. But still, money is in demand. Some amounts, some currencies, they are very high in demand, and some currencies, they are not that high in demand. But still, demand for currency is always there. And money is relatively imperishable. It is durable and can be used for future purchases. You can store the money, you can keep them in your wallets, in your deposits, in your safes, and you can use it at any time. Whereas if you want to exchange the commodities against commodities, so you can't store commodities for a very long time, because there are so many factors which will destroy, or the nature of the commodity, maybe it is perishable. So the money can be stored for longer time period. And it is easy to store and easily divisible. And it is easy to store, as I mentioned earlier, that you can put them in safe deposits, you can deposit them in banks or financial institutions, and also it is easily divisible. So the denomination of 5,000 rupees, you can divide it into 1,000 each, or any other denomination equivalent to 5,000 rupees. And money lasts forever. So the concept is that money lasts forever. Whatever amount you possess, it contains value for the unknown future. It may be forever. And all units of money are similar, meaning to say that it is easy to distinguish and estimate the value of the money. And all the units of money, they are taken as similar. So there are different denominations, and the notes in shapes and prints, maybe they are different. There are different versions in different years, but $100 will be equal to $100 of different notes printed in different years, and like the same way in other currencies as well. And the concept of money under Islamic economic system. So we have watched a documentary, an animated documentary also in our previous lecture, and the concept is somewhat similar, that Islam treats money as unit of account to determine the relative worth of goods and services. So it is simply a unit of account to determine the relative worth of goods and services. For example, if you want to exchange the same commodities, you can only exchange them with the same denomination, with the same specification, with the same quality, like wheat for wheat, salt for salt, rice for rice. But if you want to exchange commodities, the different commodities like rice and wheat, so you have to price them. So money provides an opportunity to price the commodities. So its only job is that it provides you a standard of measure of value, and then in itself it's a medium of exchange and not a store of value. In itself it is not a store of value. And then all units of money of the same denomination are 100% equal to each other, as in the conventional system. All the units of money of equal denomination, they are taken as 100% same and equal with each other. For example, you cannot exchange a coin of 5 rupees against a coin of 2 rupees. So it should be equal. When you exchange any denomination, it should be exchanged with the same denomination. So it eliminates the concept of riba. Whenever you forward any amount, so whenever you loan any amount, so you are not supposed to earn any addition on it with the passage of time. So the amount forwarded will be returned in the same denomination. So it is possible that you exchange the 100 rupees with 2 notes of 50 rupees each, but the worth should be same, the total count should be same, and it becomes useful only when it is exchanged into real asset or used to buy services. Money in itself doesn't have any intrinsic value, but it becomes useful only when we convert it into some other asset, some other goods or services. And money cannot be sold or bought on credit. So you cannot sell the money as a commodity in the market under Islamic economic system. And now the concept of money and commodity. under conventional economic system, money is also treated as commodity. As we saw in our previous lectures, under the factors of production, money is taken as capital. So it is taken as commodity. The people, they charge cost of their capitals. It is known as interest rate. Whereas under Islamic economic system, money is not taken as commodity. It is a consumed input in a production process. So whenever you want to benefit from the currency, you have to convert it into some other form of capital. And money has no intrinsic utility, whereas a commodity has an intrinsic utility and can be utilized directly. You cannot use money directly. If you are hungry, you can't eat the currency notes. You have to convert those currency notes into some food stuff, and only then you can eat it. And if you want to invest your money into some business, you can only use them by converting them into some physical asset or services. And commodities can have different qualities, while money's sole quality lies in the fact that it is a measure of value or a medium of exchange. So the difference is here that money under Islamic economic system is only a medium of exchange and a measure of value. As I mentioned earlier, when you have to exchange two different commodities, so money would provide you a measure of value. So it will make you easier to exchange your commodities, to buy and sell. So and it is only a medium of exchange, not a store of value. And Sharia treats money differently from commodities for two main reasons. Some justifications we already discussed in the previous lectures of factors of production, and now the Sharia thinks that money is not allowed to be the subject matter of trade like other commodities, and if money has to be exchanged for money or is borrowed for exceptional reasons, the payment on both sides must be equal so that it is not used for any purpose for which it is not meant to be used. For example, trading in money itself. So, if you exchange money under certain circumstances, first of all, it is not allowed. But if you have to exchange money, so you can only exchange them with equal amounts. If you forward an amount as a loan for suppose 1,000 rupees, you are supposed to take back only 1,000 rupees. So, it will eliminate the concept of riba. So, if you want to earn money on money, that will become riba. So, Islam doesn't allow to earn you the riba. And making money out of money under the concept of money under Islamic economic system, Islam considers money to be no more than a medium of exchange and to have no value in itself. It should not be allowed to give rise to more money via fixed interest payments. So actually these are the same concepts. We are discussing them over and over again. And as I mentioned earlier, money is treated as capital only when it joins hands with other resources to undertake a productive activity. And lending of money, like the capitalist financial system, Islam doesn't recognize loans as income generating transactions. So as in our previous discussion as well, under Islamic economic system or under Islamic financial system, money is not allowed to be transacted in a way that it earns money. So actually that leads towards the concept of interest, so which is not allowed. And the second point is cash versus credit price in sale transactions. So the thing is that what about selling a commodity on cash basis and or on credit basis? Should the spot price be lower than the credit price, or it should be the same thing? So this is a point where time value of money is explained or justified under the Islamic economic system. The permissibility of sale on credit, the legal evidences. First of all, it is allowed to sell anything, any commodity or goods or services on credit, because we have certain references from Quran and Hadith. Allah says that Allah has permitted trade and forbidden riba. Because Allah has permitted trade. Trade is allowed. You are allowed to exchange, you are allowed to buy and sell. And then in the same surah, Allah says, O you who believe, when you deal with each other in transactions involving future obligations, in a fixed period of time, record them in writing. So this ayah justifies that when you sell anything, when you enter into any contract where future obligations are there, it means the credit transaction is there. So that you should write it down, and the time period should be fixed, or it should be known in the contract. So the credit sale is justified. And then al-Mu'minin Sayyida Aisha radiyallahu anha reported that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam bought some foodstuff on credit from a Jewish trader and mortgaged his armor to him. The hadith is narrated in Bukhari and Muslim as well. So Prophet ﷺ also used to buy and sell on credit because he was a trader himself, and it is proved, there are evidences that he purchased the commodities on credit. And there is consensus among the scholars from different masalik like Hanbali, Shafi, Maliki, that the credit sale is possible, and also the delayed payment can be increased against a certain commodity. So it means on the credit, price can be increased. So it justifies the time value of money as well. So under Hanafi Maslak, it is said that the price may be increased based on deferment. So if the price is going to be paid after some time period, the price can be increased. And then time has been given a share in the price under the Maliki Maslak. So the Malikis, they think that price can be increased with the time. The duration of time would determine how much price should be increased. If the time duration is shorter, price will be increased in a lower proportion. If the time duration is longer, then price will be increased in a greater proportion. And the deferment earns a portion of the price under the Shafi'i Maslak, and deferment takes share of the price. So the same concept in Hanbali Maslak as well. So the scholars, they agree that the credit sale is allowed, and the credit sale with a deferred payment, the price can be increased under the credit sale. And about reducing the price or reducing the amount for an early repayment, if you have loaned your amount and if you want to get the loan back, would it be allowed to reduce the amount? For example, if you have sold anything on credit and the time is for 1 year, and if you want to get it back before 1 year, so is it allowed to reduce the price or to reduce the loan amount? So there are different points of views. The juristic consensus is that making such a reduction in the case of a deferred debt conditional on earlier repayment is not allowed, whereas some of the companions permit. Ibn al-Qayyim, and more recently the concept has been adopted by the OIC Fiqh Academy, and it says reduction of a deferred debt in order to accelerate its repayment, whether at the request of the debtor or the creditor, is permissible under the Sharia. It doesn't constitute a forbidden riba if it is not agreed upon in advance, and as long as the creditor-debtor relationship remains bilateral. If, however, a third party is involved, it becomes forbidden since it becomes similar to the discount of bills. So the next concept is that discounting of bills. It means that if you have any bills receivable with you, and you can discount it under the conventional economic system with any third party, maybe the bank or any financial institution or any business entity in the market. So suppose you have a bill receivable of 100,000 rupees with you, with the duration of time mentioned on it as 3 months. But now if you want to get the cash right away, if you want to convert that bill receivable into cash, you can discount it in the market. So there are certain rates to discount it, 7%, 8%, 10%, or any amount depending upon the time duration involved into it. So that discounting of bill is not allowed under Islamic economic system, whereas if there are bilateral negotiations between the buyer and the seller, between the debtor and the creditor, that if they want to get the payment earlier, if they want to expedite their receivables, they can reduce the amount of debt. And on the same way, the debtor can request the creditor that if you reduce the amount, I can make you payment earlier. So it should be between them only. If any third party involves into this contract, then it will become like a discounting of bill, which is not allowed in the Islamic economic system. And the third point is the monetary valuation of time in credit transaction. The price differential compensating for the delay in fulfilling a party's contractual obligation or for the opportunity cost of the money used by a contractual party in providing goods have been recognized as legitimate under traditional jurisprudence. When you sell something on credit, the time involved between the payment of the price would determine how much you can increase the price. So this is allowed under the Islamic economic system. So that delay in time is connected with the increased price. So it will determine the time value of the money under Islamic contracts. So instead of earning interest as time value of money, you can increase the price of commodities for the deferred amount of payment. For example, if somebody is selling something on spot for 100 rupees, the same commodity can be sold for, say, rupees 110 for 1 month, where the payment will be made after 1 month. And maybe it is possible that if the payment is made for, let's suppose, for 1 year, after 1 year. So this increase in time is justified with the increase in the price. So the time value of money concept is justified under Islamic economic system as well. I will repeat it again, that when you sell anything, the subject matter is not money. Money is not a commodity under Islamic economic system. So any commodity, when you sell it on the as a spot payment basis or the cash basis, the price will be different. But if you sell the commodity on a deferred payment basis, I mean on credit, it means you can increase the price, and the time duration involved would determine how much price should be increased. So the time value of money is justified on the price basis. Since money is not taken as a commodity, so if you have to loan out your money, so the only possible arrangement is that you loan it out as Qarde Hasan. Qarde Hasan means the amount you forward as a loan, you are only supposed to take it the same amount back after a certain time period. So that is the concept of Qarde Hasan. So Islamic financial institutions, they don't lend any amount, rather they invest. So if they lend anything, that is Qarde Hasan. So if you look at the statement or the quarterly bulletin of State Bank of Pakistan, you will see the division of different activities of Islamic banks, like different modes of financing in the economy. So unfortunately, Qarde Hasana is 0% in that overall modes of financing of Islamic banks. So whereas there should be at least some proportion of their financing as Qarde Hasana as well. It may be for the students, maybe for the poor or the needy people. And the fourth concept is economic value of time. So as I mentioned earlier, Sharia admits the concept of money's time value to the extent of pricing on a credit sale. It doesn't endorse placing rent on money advances as interest does in case of credit that advances. And the time valuation is possible only when goods are traded, not when exchanging monetary values and loans or debts. While money's time value is acceptable in case of pricing assets and their usufruct, it is not acceptable in the case of any addition to the loans or debts principal. Money's time value is only acceptable when it is in the shape of price of any asset, of any commodity, or its use. It means there is an arrangement that you sell your commodity, and there is an arrangement you lease out your commodity on ijara basis. So the services of your asset can earn some rent on it, or a price for those services, whereas renting of money to earn money on it, it is not allowed in Islam. And it is better to use the term economic value of time instead of time value of money, because when we trade something, it is in terms of economic values. So when we price something, it is in terms of economic values. So when we charge a price on the cash basis, it is one way of trading. And then if we delay the payment to some future time period, so there is the time involved into the payment. So that time has an economic value. It means the opportunity cost is involved into it. For example, if you sell any commodity for 100 rupees today, but if you sell it on a credit for 1 month, and the price you charge maybe is 110 rupees, so it means you have to commit your 100 rupees for 1 month. And if you have used that 100 rupees into your business, you might have earned another 10 rupees during that month. So that opportunity cost is actually the time value of the economic value of the time. So it is better to use the term economic value of time rather than the time value of money. And there is a comparison between the conventional and Islamic perspective of time value of money, or the concept. Under the conventional economic system, so what we have discussed in our previous lecture, so we are just going to summarize them in a comparison. Money is a commodity besides medium of exchange and store of value. Therefore, it can be sold at a price higher than its face value, and it can also be rented out. Whereas under Islam, money is not a commodity, though it is used as a medium of exchange and store of value. Therefore, it cannot be sold at a price higher than its face value or rented out. The basic difference is that money is taken as commodity under the conventional economic system and store of value, whereas under Islamic economic system, the emphasis is on medium of exchange and not a commodity. So the difference lies in the nature of the commodity itself. And under the conventional economic system, time value is the basis for charging interest on capital. So the time would determine that how much interest would be paid on the capital. And normally on the credit, whatever is the transaction in the conventional economic system, the credit for a certain time period would earn an interest on it. For example, if you sell any commodity for 100,000 rupees, and the payment will be made after 1 year, then for one year there will be an increase in the price based on certain percentage, and that percentage is the interest rate. Whereas under Islamic economic system, profit on trade of goods or charging on providing services is the basis for earning profits. And in conventional system, interest is charged even in case the organization suffers losses by using bank's funds. Therefore, it is not based on profit and loss sharing. Normally, if you go to any conventional bank in Pakistan, you will see profit and loss deposits or profit and loss accounts. Actually, they are not the profit and loss accounts. They are only profit accounts. Whatever amount you borrow from there, you have to make payment as the principal payment plus the interest payment. So whatever is the fate of the business, for example, if a business person an entrepreneur has borrowed any amount from the bank, suppose 100,000 rupees, and the installment is 10,000 rupees per month, with the principal amount 10,000 rupees plus the interest on the remaining balance. So if the business earns any profit, that profit goes to the entrepreneur, whereas if the business earns any losses, the bank is not concerned with the losses. Bank has to receive the principal amount in installments plus the interest rate on the remaining balance. Whereas in Islamic banking system or under the Islamic financial system, Islamic banks, they operate based on profit and loss sharing. In case the business person has suffered losses, the bank will share those losses based on the mode of financing using mudarba and musharaka. So as I mentioned before, that under Islamic financial system, banks, they don't lend, rather they invest. So when the banks become investors under any arrangement, and the most discussed arrangements, they are musharaka and mudarba. Musharaka is a regular partnership, and mudarba is the partnership like entrepreneur and the capital provider. So under these arrangements, the profits and losses, they are shared. So the banks is a partner in profits and losses as well. Whereas under conventional economic system, banks only share the profits, that is the interest, the fixed amount of interest. Whatever is the rate of profit of the entrepreneur, bank will charge a fixed amount. Whereas in Islamic financial system, the banks and the business person are the partners. They get together for any business venture and they share profits and losses as well. The mechanism of sharing profits and loss we already discussed in our previous lectures as well, and we will discuss them in detail in our future lectures as well, and the justification of the sharing profits and losses also. And under the conventional economic system or under conventional financial system, while disbursing cash finance, running finance or working capital finance, no agreement for exchange of goods and services is made. So bank is not concerned what the organization or the business entity is going to do with the cash. For example, if the objective of the cash of the loan is for the financing of certain venture, the bank is not bothered about the fate of that venture. And if it is for a running finance or it is for working capital financing, bank is not concerned whether the business actually purchased commodities or goods or services what were mentioned in the contract. Rather, bank is concerned with the repayment of the loan with some interest on it. Whereas under Islamic financial system, if the loan is for any purpose, bank will make sure as a partner into that particular venture that the same venture is taken or it is conducted or the operations are same as mentioned in the contract. The execution of agreement for the exchange of goods and services is necessary while disbursing funds under Murabaha, Salam, Istisna contracts. There are different contracts, there are different modes of financing under Islamic financial system. For example, Murabaha, which says that the bank will finance the consumer, for example, for any commodity, let's suppose for a car, where the car's price is suppose 1 million, the bank will add all the costs, for example, the freight, the service charges, or any other related cost, plus the bank will announce its profit into it, and then this will make the total price of the Murabaha contract. And bank will make sure whatever funds are forwarded, they are used for that particular transaction, that is for the car, if the contract is for car. And then under the Salam and Istisna contracts, these modes we will be discussing in our future lectures as well. So Salam is actually a mode of financing for the farmers in the agriculture sector, where the banks or the financial institutions, they purchase the crop of the farmers before they harvest their crops. Under this arrangement, at the time of contract, the bank or the financial institution make the payment to the farmer, and the time is fixed for the crop when that crop will be harvested, and then that crop will be delivered to the bank. Under the given agreement, the amount, the specification, it will be mentioned in the contract that, for example, if the contract is for wheat, so suppose the time duration involved is 5 months, so the bank will make payment for that wheat which will be ready after 5 months. At the time of contract, it will be spot payment, whereas time of delivery will be mentioned into the contract, and bank will receive that commodity, that particular commodity, after 5 months. So Islamic banks, they make sure the type of financing is used for that particular venture. They will not like conventional banks, whereas the conventional banks, they are not concerned about the use of their funds, the borrowed funds. So under Islamic economic system, Islamic banks, they will make sure that the loans or the financing for a particular transaction is used for that particular commodity, for that particular goods or services. And under conventional financial system, banks use money as a commodity which leads to the inflation. So the concept has already been discussed in detail in our previous lecture, money as debt. And under Islamic economic system or under Islamic financial system, Islamic banking tends to create link with the real sectors of the economic system by using trade-related activities. Since the money is linked with the real assets, therefore it contributes directly in the economic development. Unlike conventional banks, Islamic banks, they do have money as a medium of exchange, but they don't take money as capital. So they convert the money into capital before they become partners with their clients. For example, in case of musharka or mudarba or maybe any other mode of financing like car ijara, murabha, salam, istisna, or any other mode of financing. So under Islamic banking system, the banks, they add value to the economy, whereas under conventional economic system, the loans or the capital provided to the borrowers, it may not be used for that particular venture. For example, if a farmer takes a loan from a bank to purchase a cow, suppose the loan amount is 200,000 rupees. So the farmer takes that loan and the farmer uses it for different purposes and the cow is not purchased. So there is no economic activity taken place in the economy. So the milk has not been produced into the economy. Whereas if the same particular loan is from the Islamic bank, the bank will make sure the cow is purchased and then the cow is being used to produce milk or any other commodity or any other asset or any other physical capital has been purchased and is in place or is in operation for that particular nature or the objective of that particular transaction. Before we close the session, please watch this animated documentary.
Maybe your first experience of putting money in the bank wasn't quite as heartwarming as this, but odds are, years later, you still refer to the balance showing on your bank account as being your money in the bank. But it isn't. If we have a deposit box at the bank, the valuables we put in it are still ours. We're just renting secure space to store them. In common usage, the word deposit means to set something down. But the use of the word deposit to refer to a bank account is misleading. A bank deposit is in reality a loan. What the amount in our bank account really indicates is how much money the bank owes us. It's a record of the bank's promise to pay us money, not the money we deposited itself. The difference is important. The truth is, when we hand the contents of our piggy bank to the bank teller, our money becomes the bank's money to do with as it pleases. All of the money in the bank is the bank's money. None of it is ours. That's why the bank pays us interest. We have loaned the bank our money. This may seem to be a semantic distinction. We know we can go to the bank at any time and take our money out in cash if we want to. But the distinction is not semantic, nor is it trivial. The distinction is crucial. What happens in banking affects everyone, and yet few of us know anything at all about how banking really works. The entire world economy now runs on a system of credit provided by banks, and when that credit system breaks down, everyone suffers. To make things worse, the explanations for these breakdowns offered by the experts never look at the root cause, namely, that other than cash and coins, which make up just 1 to 5% of money in circulation, all the money in existence today was created as the principal of a bank loan, with the banks requiring principal plus interest as so-called repayment. Not only does this make the existence of money entirely dependent on the existence of bank credit, it makes the system as a whole bankrupt by design, as total debits, principal plus interest, exceed total assets from the moment the first loan document is signed. As the global banking system staggers towards worldwide collapse, more and more people are realizing they can no longer ignore the realities behind banking as it is practiced today. Many have lost their homes and jobs due entirely to the unsustainable practices of moneylenders. It's time people understood money and the pressing need to fundamentally change the way it works. Clarifying what the words used in banking really mean is the first step. Now that we know that a deposit is, in truth, a loan to a bank, the next question is, what is a loan that we take out from a bank? When we sign for a loan, we give the bank a pledge to pay the amount of the loan plus interest. In return, the bank credits our account in the same amount as this so-called loan. While we speak of the bank as having put the loan money into our account, in reality, the only thing the bank puts into our account is its promise to pay the money. What has actually happened is an exchange of promises. Neither party has delivered anything to the other except matching pledges of debt. So who is the borrower and who is the lender? The terms loan, lender, and borrower are all misleading. The truth is that the two parties have traded promises to pay and in the process created something called bank credit or checkbook money that can be legally spent as money. Bank credit can be spent because we, in our innocence, notice that each time we deposit into our account, it increases our balance by the same amount. In fact, unless we put something in, our account will be empty. Thus, it's a natural assumption that money in an account is money someone put in. The account is a promise to pay, not the money itself. In fact, a promise always indicates the absence of the item promised. Otherwise, why does it need to be promised? Now, because all bank accounts are just promises to pay, the bank and the borrower can simply exchange promises and, in the flash of a few keystrokes, a positive balance appears in the borrower's bank account without anyone putting existing money in. Now you know the real source of what we call a bank loan. How different would it be if two parties just got together in a basement with a printing press and created new money that way? We intuitively understand the act of fraud called counterfeiting. In printing fake $100 bills, the counterfeiters also create new money out of thin air. Money gives us the ability to purchase the real goods and services of the world. It's clear that the counterfeiters have created new ability to purchase real goods and services without giving anything in exchange except a fancy piece of paper. Counterfeiters get something for nothing directly at the expense of whoever gets caught with their counterfeit money. And if the counterfeit money is not discovered, it dilutes the money supply, stealing from everyone. Counterfeiting is a serious crime, and it is easy to understand why. It's cheating on a basic social agreement, thou shalt not steal. But taking a loan from a bank also creates new purchasing power. However, instead of being considered a form of theft, it is the very basis of our monetary system. How did one form of creating money out of thin air become a crime and the other become standard business practice and the source of almost all our money? For this is what has happened. To understand how, we need to look at the history of the laws governing commerce. But before that, we need to understand the logic of the loan process itself. The borrower wants to purchase an item, but doesn't have the funds to do so at the present time. However, the borrower does have confidence in having sufficient funds over time to pay both the original price of the item and the interest on a loan. So he goes to a bank to arrange a loan. The borrower is capable of making a credible promise of money in the future, but otherwise at this moment he comes with empty pockets. That's why he needs the loan. We're probably all familiar with what happens next. The bank gets the borrower to sign an agreement in which the borrower promises to pay the bank the amount of the loan plus interest, or, in default, surrender to the bank the object that is to be purchased with the loan. This is done countless times every day all over the world. But there's a problem. How can the borrower pledge as collateral something that the borrower does not yet own? If I wanted to borrow $10,000 from you to go on a luxury cruise to Europe, would you accept my neighbor's car as collateral? Of course not, because you know very well that I have no legal right to give you my neighbor's car, no matter how much I owe you. But if instead I promise to buy my neighbor's car with the $10,000 you lend me, the situation is different. You might agree to lend me the $10,000, believing I will buy the car and will pledge it as collateral for the loan once I obtain legal title to it. However, until the transaction is completed, your $10,000 loan cannot be secured by title to the car. This sequence of events problem could be very simply avoided. You could buy the car and then sell it to me. The bank could do it this way too. If the borrower commits to the bank to buy the item, why doesn't the bank just buy it with its own money and then sell it to the borrower on time payments at interest? Well, the answer to that question is also very simple. It's because the bank, like the borrower, has come to the transaction with empty pockets. The bank fulfills its part of the so-called loan transaction by creating an account for the borrower. The truth is, the so-called borrower has funded his own account by fraudulently pledging a car he does not yet own as collateral. And the bank, the so-called lender, hasn't put up any existing money at all. And, if all goes well, it never will. The borrower believes the new numbers in his account now represent his money in the bank. He, like the rest of us, doesn't understand the difference between existing money and a promise of money. If you can spend it, what does it matter? So now the question is, will the seller of the item accept the bank's promise to pay? While some people may hold out for cash, most will say yes to a check or an electronic funds transfer from the buyer's bank. Why? Because the seller knows from experience that she can deposit the check at her bank and it will increase her account accordingly. So what happens next? Well, obviously the buyer's bank now owes the seller's bank the amount of the loan. So you might be thinking, isn't this where the money comes out of deposits? The bank's promise to pay the borrower has just been transformed by the transaction into a promise to pay the seller's bank instead. So now the buyer's bank has to transfer some of its existing money to the seller's bank, correct? Yes, but probably only a small proportion. And over the long term, as long as the bank gets its fair share of deposits, the net amount of existing money the bank needs to cover its loans can theoretically be zero. How? Well, imagine first that the seller has her account at the same bank as the buyer. She deposits the buyer's check into her account. All the bank has to do to complete the transaction is reduce the buyer's account by the same amount it increases the seller's account. As both accounts are just promises, no existing money is involved in doing this. What is the end result? The bank has created bank credit for the borrower to the sum of $10,000. The borrower has bought the car that existed in the world of real things, and the seller now has that bank credit of $10,000. Thus, a brand new claim upon $10,000 worth of real goods of value was accomplished with absolutely $0 of the bank's or anybody else's money. On top of that, the bank gets to have all this so-called money paid back by the borrower's honest toil plus interest, or the bank gets the car. Magic like this is usually seen on stage. So now let's examine what happens if the seller deposits her check in a different bank. Won't that require a transfer of existing bank funds from the buyer's bank to the seller's bank? Perhaps, but it will almost certainly never be anywhere near the whole amount because, in effect, the banking system functions as one bank. To illustrate, let's add another transaction to this scenario. That same day, the seller's bank made a similar loan to a little old lady who bought a mega home theater system. The electronics store deposited her check at their bank. The electronics store's bank made a similar loan that was deposited at the original borrower's bank. And when all the various balances were settled, the banks didn't owe each other anything. And even if there were differences, they would have been just a small portion of the total credit created. So, at this point we can say that although banks don't actually lend out their depositors' money, as most of us imagine, they still need deposits to make loans. This is because banks need incoming credit from other banks to offset their own credit being deposited at those banks. As long as banks keep their outgoing credit balanced with incoming credit, they are free to make new loans and thereby keep creating brand new credit money. None of it will ever have to come out of the bank's pockets. The bank is free to invest its own funds in corporate and government bonds and whatever other instruments their charter allows. If one draws a diagram of it all, it looks like this. The interest governments and corporations pay the banks on their bonds is paid by us. We pay it as a portion of our taxes, and we pay it in the price of all the goods and services that we buy. And there is another thing passed on to us as well, and that's the risk that the bank will go broke and not be able to honor its promises to pay. Now you may wonder, how can a bank go broke if it doesn't put any money up in the first place? What have they got to lose? The answer to that question is that banks differ from counterfeiters in that the banks are legally allowed to create new money, but only by certain rules of accounting. Banks can only create money by entering a borrower's payments and collateral as an asset on the positive side of the ledger, balanced on the negative side by the loan, or what the banks call the deposit liability created by the bank. When the borrower defaults on the payments, the asset pledged as collateral is seized by the bank and sold. In a declining market, when repossession is most common, the new lower value of the asset doesn't cover the bank's liabilities, which were based on the previous higher value. This shows up as a loss on the bank's books. When foreclosures are rampant, as in a collapsing real estate market, much of the value of the bank's collateral simply evaporates as home prices drop, exposing the bank to huge losses. In truth, it's all just numbers, created out of thin air. But banks must adhere to the dictates of these numbers, and the consequences of bank arithmetic gone wrong can include economic standstill, social disintegration, total financial chaos, lawlessness, starvation, and war. However, for the purposes of understanding the anatomy of a loan, we shall assume that the system is still functional and all three of the loans we were looking at will get paid. The end result is that not $1 of existing money has changed hands, but $30,000 of new bank credit has been created and spent into the money supply, and each of the three banks gets to collect interest on $10,000 of it. Is creation of this brand new $30,000 really an act of fraud, like counterfeiting? The obvious difference is that the banking system is legal, regulated by government, and disciplined by the courts to follow the rules of accounting. Another difference is that there is no obvious victim, like the person getting caught with a counterfeit bill. Banks argue that the buyer and the seller both got what they wanted and agreed to, so where is the fraud? And if there was a fraud, who lost out? Well, to determine that, let us list who got what out of the deal. The borrower got the item he desired on terms he willingly agreed to. He may curse his decision later as he struggles to make the interest payments, or he may live happily ever after, thankful he got the loan. The seller got an increase in bank credit, which she's been conditioned since childhood to think of as her money in the bank. She's confident that she'll be able to spend it in turn, and she will. So, as far as the seller is concerned, she has been paid in full. She's happy. So who, if anyone, suffered as a result of the deal? Is there another party to this transaction we've overlooked? Well, there's also the bank that gets to collect interest on a promise to pay money. That's the business they are in and usually do very well by. And anyone else? Well, where did the car come from? It came from the world of real things. Natural resources, energy, and labor were expended to produce it. What if we consider the hidden party to be society at large and the natural world from which all things ultimately come? Because the brand new bank credit money didn't just sit there, it got spent into the general circulation in the real world. It's the real world that ultimately gets the new money in exchange for its car. This new money might stimulate new production, temporarily enlarging the economy, making lots of people happy. In fact, it often does, as most bank credit comes into being as a home mortgage, stimulus for the residential construction industry, a big provider of good-paying jobs. However, after its initial productive use, this newly created money will basically just dilute the money supply, reducing money's purchasing power by a very small amount. So, in contrast to counterfeiting, where the loss occurs to a specific victim, here the loss is borne by us all, because the real substance of the loan, the car, was extracted from the economy at large by a slight loss in the value of everyone's money.
So that was about our today's lecture. So in our today's lecture, we discussed the concept of time value of money in the conventional financial system, and also we discussed the concept of time value of money under Islamic economic system, where money is not taken as commodity or capital, rather it is taken as medium of exchange, and the money itself is not allowed to earn any profit onto it. Trade of money is not allowed, rather money should be converted into any other asset, any good or service to earn anything. And finally, we made a comparison between the conventional and Islamic perspective about the time value of money and the practices of conventional financial institutions and practices of Islamic financial institutions, and how do they differ. And actually, the main difference lies between the understanding or the idea of money itself, where in conventional economic system we take money as a commodity, as a capital, where the commodity can be rented out to earn interest on it, and as capital it can be rented out to earn interest, and it can be sold, it can be purchased. Whereas in Islamic financial system, money is not taken as commodity, it is only a medium of exchange, and it only facilitates the transactions. So the main difference is about the understanding of money. And hope you understand today's topic, and inshallah we'll see you in the next lecture. Till then, Assalamu alaikum.